I saw something really beautiful on Instagram yesterday and I posted it to my stories. It was a visual image that really summed up the fact that we are halfway through 2025. And it was literally saying, like, this half is already done, the rest is up to you. And I loved it. It was so beautiful. And it just got me thinking, wow, it's time for mid year checking because I've already learned some incredible lessons this year, which I think can maybe go on to help you as well. But also, I'm thinking about how I want to plan out the rest of my year, the things that I want to focus on, my priorities. So, this is what we're going to be talking about today. Now, before I begin, just a bit of a disclaimer. There's like the rumblings of thunder at the moment. The weather's taking a turn today. I've given Tina a dental chew, like you've never seen a dog so excited to brush their teeth. Essentially, just in case she starts barking, this is why. So, let's talk then about some of these big lessons that I have learnt so far in 2025. Well, really, the first part of this year has been dominated by our move from Palermo back to the Salerno province. Now, it wasn't an easy decision to make. Like, I didn't move to Palermo and think that just 2.5 years later, I'd be coming back again. Moving is expensive. It's difficult as well because we were going to an island and then, of course, leaving the island and coming back to the mainland. And of course, that just adds to the stress and to the cost of everything. It's not as simple as if you're just moving within the mainland itself. So, all of it was a big upheaval. However, do I regret my decision? Absolutely not. And, like people ask me, do I miss Palermo? Because, I lived there for 2.5 years. I didn't really expect to leave, to be honest. I went there thinking that we would stay there. But the reality is, life there presents a very different reality to what you might see if you only spend a short period of time there. And at some point, I think the life there just completely grated away at me. Like, I was looking the other day at some of the videos that I posted last year on my YouTube channel and also looking at some old photographs. And oh my goodness, I wore the stress of that city on my body, on my face. You could just see how stressed I was. And it wasn't completely just because of my environment. There were other stresses to do with like the difficulties my boyfriend was having with his work. And, like there were just lots of other external factors. But essentially, life there was not easy. I did not have a simple 2.5 years. And I think coming back just made me appreciate all of the lessons that Palermo had taught me, but also made me appreciate this new environment again so much more. Because when I first moved to Italy, I moved to Salerno city itself. And I only really saw that side of this country. Going to Palermo gave me that sense of contrast, but then coming back to the Salerno province made me appreciate things again so much more because things here work better. I'm honest. There is a sense of order. People have a different mentality here. Yes, it's not the same for all of the province. Like, in Naples, sometimes people draw parallels between Naples and Palermo. But, in a lot of the other places, people have a very different mindset to what I experienced in Palermo itself. And so I'm super happy to be back. And the biggest lesson that this whole move has taught me is how much your environment impacts you. And I've spoken about this in previous episodes, but essentially, you have to live somewhere and you have to spend time in places and you have to surround yourself with people that lift you up because otherwise it drags you down. And I really feel that, just before we left, I was like on the floor in terms of like my energy, my stress. Now since returning back here, it's like light and shade. I look so different. I feel so different. I look and feel how I felt before I moved to Palermo. And now I've come back to how I looked and felt before I left. It's strange. It's like this whole before and after situation. But essentially, I've really realized how your environment impacts you. And I've realized that when things don't feel right, you have to change direction, you have to change course. And so that has been a huge lesson that I've learned this year. I've also started working completely from home. So smart working, as it's known here in Italy, or remote working, as it's known elsewhere. And this is the first time in my entire life that I've ever worked in this way. I've always been used to going to a physical place of work, or, at best when I was in Palermo, I would work from home a couple of times a week, but then I'd always go to a physical location for the rest of the days. So it has taken a bit of getting used to. And it is something that I'm continuing to work on for the rest of this year, because I essentially get to create my own environment. So this makes me very, very happy indeed, for all of the reasons I've mentioned before, but also because I can make my working space as comfortable as I need it to be. Like, when you are completely working online, I think you have to really think about your health. You have to think about your comfort, and you have to make the space as inviting as possible. And I'm super lucky because I have a separate office space in my home, so I can close that door at the end of my working day and be done. And I don't use that room for anything else other than work related stuff. So part of that room has my desk in, and the other part my YouTube studio, but it's a work room. I don't need to use it for anything other than to work. So I get to kind of separate my energy at the end of my working day and not find it too difficult to relax, which is a beautiful thing. But the thing that I am needing to work on is how to better use my time, because now I'm not having to commute. Now I actually have the option of, utilizing these huge chunks of time that I often have in the course of a day between lessons. I'm like, I need to get better at this. Now, I'm a very productive person. Like, I really do try to make the most of the time that I have. But I think because it is the season of summer now, and everything around me is starting to slow down, the weather's beautiful apart from today. And, I'm more inclined to want to go out and sunbathe and make the most of this weather during this period. So I think I can be kind on myself that I'm not as productive as I normally am at this time. But I do realize that, I want to perhaps create a better routine for myself so that I actually make the most of this extra time that I've been blessed with. So that's something that I will continue to focus on for the rest of this year. But I am getting used to this new way of working. I think you do have to kind of make sure that you are interacting with people, and you are still going out, and you are still, having that kind of physical interaction with other people, because it can be quite isolating if you are just constantly at home on your computer. But it is a way of working that I do enjoy, just for the freedom that it can bring you, and just for the fact that I get to create my own environment and I'm not in toxic spaces. So this makes me very, very happy indeed. I've also learned this year that you have to go with the flow with life. Now, as a double Virgo, this is super, super difficult for me to adjust to, but it is really, really important. And it ties into everything that I've spoken about so far, with the move back to the Salerno province, adjusting to this new way of working. You have to go with the flow of life sometimes. And I think when people try to fight the things that are happening in their life, and they try to, fight against it, you make your life more difficult than it needs to be. If we had stayed in Palermo, our life would have been extremely difficult, and we would have continued to have the same struggles even now, maybe worse than we were experiencing before. We had to go with the flow of life, and we had to realize that our calling was here. It was no longer there. And we had to allow the road to carry us to this destination and experience what life would be like here. And, it is an upgrade for us. It is a chance to have a better life. And I've just released so much stress as a result of this move. Go with the flow of life. This is a super, super important consideration. Absolutely. Another lesson that I have learned so far this year is that it's okay to change. Now, I feel like these lessons are all interconnected and interwoven in a way, but it's actually really natural and normal to want to change. Now, change for me, of course, has been about my physical location, but also it's been in a few other ways as well. So I've changed the branding on my YouTube channel, for example. I'm changing the focus of what I'm talking about now, and I'm allowing myself to lean more into some of the things that really interest me, like mindset, personal development, and always connecting it back here to life in Italy. I'm changing the way that I approach my social platforms. So I decided to reduce the memberships that I had on my YouTube channel and just make it one membership, because I realized that I was overloading myself and I was doing far too much and I couldn't manage it all. I have changed my appearance. So I've had black hair for I don't know how long, but I realized that it was very heavy. And now I've lightened my hair to light brown and caramel colors. And I love it. And I realize it makes me feel better and look better as a result. So there are lots of little changes that I'm going through at the moment. But you see, change is a beautiful thing. Change is nothing to be scared of. It's a natural part of life. And I see so many people resist change. I see so many people try to keep themselves in the exact same places because change feels too scary. And this is a huge lesson that I want to share with you because change, yes, it doesn't feel comfortable, but it contains some of the biggest and best lessons that you could ever learn. And, you know, if your life always looks the same, I really think you stop living, as I've said so many other times before. So, change is important. And, we don't like to change things sometimes because sometimes we feel like perhaps we failed if it's like a work related change, for example, or perhaps we feel that, there's too much risk involved in it if it's a big life decision. Well, risk is inevitable. It's a natural part of life. You're never going to escape risk if you're truly living. So I think you just have to embrace it and accept it and go with the flow more. And that's why I think these lessons so far have been so beautifully interwoven and interconnected. And people have said to us that we were really courageous to come back here to Salerno province and to up our lives again and do all of this. But you see, yes, it was a risk. Yes, there was a lot of courage involved in the decision, but it's made us feel so much better. And so it's a change that has actually contained a lot of beauty within it. So this is the thing. Don't be afraid of change. Don't be afraid of taking risks. It's a natural part of life. And as long as you feel aligned with the risk and the change that you're taking, I think that you will realize it's the right thing for you to do. The focus then for the rest of this year for me, as we kind of approach into July, the focus really for me is about establishing a good routine for myself here and looking after myself more. And also, like, just looking at ways that I can continuously up level my life from my mindset through to the way that I look, through to kind of the habits and routines that I develop for myself. This is a glow up year for me. I feel I can feel it. I think the first 6 months for me have just been about adjusting to this new life, getting the house ready, doing the move, all of this stuff. And now we are settled. The next 6 months can just be like really focusing on the transformation, the growth that comes from such a decision. And so, I'm really working on the direction that I want to take my brand in. I'm working on the way that I want to produce my social content. I'm working on the way that I want to feel as a person and making some changes to allow me to lead a life that makes me feel happier. So it's my glow up year. This is what I think. And I think everybody should have a glow up year or a glow up period where you really look at what your life is like at the moment and you think of ways, even if they are small steps, that you can improve it. I think this is a really important thing to do. And I think, what better time to do it now when you're at the midway point of 2025, really looking at your year so far. What have you done? What have you achieved? What did you want to achieve by this point? What hasn't happened that you wanted to happen? And how do you want the rest of this year to play out? I don't think you should future trip too much because essentially we never know what's going to happen really in the future. But I do think it's important to have a sense of direction because otherwise your life will always look very repetitive and same old, same old. You need to have a purpose and a direction with where you're going in your life. So this is my mid-year check-in with you all. It's been transformational so far, absolutely. And there is more transformation yet to come for the rest of this year. I do feel that within myself. But I encourage you today, take a check-in with yourself. How is your 2025 playing out for you? We're halfway through the year. What do you want to happen for the rest of this year? Have a check in with yourself and really reflect on the answers that come back because I think they can be very, very enlightening indeed. I will see you in the next episode.